What the hell is up, guys? This is Herman at Herman's Trivia Gaming. Here today with a awesome, super special video. It's going to be talking about what would be the ultimate dream gaming setup, at least to me. And hopefully, you could probably learn something and apply it to your own setups or what your setup could end up being. Whatever. Let's just get right into it. So here we are. Nice little fancy OBS switching. So as you can see, Herman's Trivia G Ultimate Gaming Setup version 1.1. 1.1 because if I ever add anything or change anything, I'll be sure to update this. Anyway, so as you can see, this has a focus on retro and modern. Gaming PC would be one of the things. You see how it has like NES and blah, blah, blah. It would be on its own thing on the side because it's a given. Hello. Anyway, starting from the oldest consoles going up until today, let's do it in that order. So we have here, it's showing on this chart, NES, SNES, N64, PS1, Genesis, and Saturn. This is your RGB consoles. This is the consoles that from the console it's outputting RGB. All 6 of these, you can add any that you prefer that have RGB in this case. They're all going into a SCART switcher. SCART is the type of just the connector that they use, and EuroSCART or JP21 is up to you. All the things that I'm saying, if you don't know what they are, I definitely recommend checking out My Life in Gaming, Retro RGB, Phone Dork. These are channels that specialize in retro consoles, like video file type shit. Also, side note, I'm using headphones, seeing if it improves the quality of the audio at all. We'll see. Anyway, so the SCART switcher, they're all going into the SCART switcher. Now, the SCART switcher's output is going BNC, which is just the type of cable that they used, still RGB. It goes into an Extron RGB matrix. Now, what a matrix is, simple explanation is, it's a splitter and a switcher in one. It says you have this many inputs and this many outputs, and any of the little presets can have any of the inputs going to any of the outputs. So for example, actually, you know what? I'll give you the example after I finish up in a second. Give me a quick second. So anyway, they're all going to, then we have, moving over to the right one space, we have PS2, Xbox, GameCube, and a Wii going into a component switcher. So they're all running component into a component switcher. Select which console you want to play, blah, blah. That switcher's output is also going into the matrix. The Extron matrix can take in RGB and YPBPR, which is just component, as many of you know. Anyway, now let's get into explanation. So, I can have, theoretically, using a matrix, for example, okay, so the matrix is outputting into a Sony PVM or BVM monitor, which is a high-end production video file, high line count, CRT display from the 2000s and back, and they just have very sharp quality. They're just very good. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I mean. For those who don't, again, Phone Dork, My Life in Gaming, Retro RGB, best places to learn about like retro video file stuff. So all the consoles are going into their respective switchers. The switchers' master outputs are going into the matrix. The matrix outputs, okay, here we go. As you can see, one of the outputs of the matrix is going to the PVM or BVM's RGB input. The other one is going into the PVM or BVM's component input. By the way, quick side note, if you're going to pick up a PVM or BVM for this purpose, you're going to want it to have 480p compatibility. Now, with CRTs, 480p, HD, ED, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times people think that you'll have compatibility problems with light gun games, but for some reason, PVMs and BVMs can output that 480p and up sometimes, and have light gun support. Because normal CRTs, consumer grade, they can't do that. Whatever. So anyway, and one of the, again, I'm going to explain. One of the RGB matrix outputs are going into the HDTV's component input. Why do we need a matrix? Why can't we just have a splitter or a switcher or whatever? Why? Here's why. If you want to play an NES, you're going to want it to be through a CRT for the most part. Let's say you're playing Duck Hunt. You need that light gun. So you would press, or rather, I think the SCART switcher that I have in mind that I would personally buy has automatic switching. So you just turn on the NES, turn on your TV. On your Matrix, you press the input that's connected into the SCART switcher's output. So I guess input 1, whatever. Input 1 and output 1. Because as you can see, the first output is going into the PVM. I would personally buy a PVM. So I'm just going to keep using the term PVM. It could be PVM or BVM. Anyway, so you'd press input 1 on the Matrix for the SCART, output 1 to RGB to the PVM, and you're good to go. So let's say you wanted to play your Game Boy player on the GameCube in 480p. Turn on the GameCube, press input 3 on the component switcher because it's the third one down on the list. Matrix input 2, output 2, because you want it to go into the PVM's component input because of that 480p. Again, no problem. We're all good here so far. But the Wii, personally, I want to play a Wii through an HD TV. It'd be 480p. But the way that I remember playing a Wii is on those 16:9 displays at 480p. So what you need to do here is component switcher input number 4 for the Wii, RGB matrix input number 2 because it's still the same component switcher, but output number 3 into the HD TV. That way you can not touch anything else and not compromise, let's say, having to play your NES through HD TV. Using a matrix, you can custom route all of your console signals how you choose. So you can play your Final Fantasy VII PS1 on your PVM. You can play your GameCube or Xbox on a PVM component at 480p. Side note, the SD consoles would be 240p or 480i depending. And you can also play your Wii 480p on your HD TV. Now, that's also useful if, let's say a PS2, kind of rare, but Xbox and GameCube games, if they have 480p support, 480p as well, but specifically 16:9 support, you can it's a flip of a switch. Just say Extron Matrix, output number 3 onto my HD TV. So now you're playing God of War 2, 16:9, 480p on your HD TV. You want to go and switch over to, Kingdom Hearts, 480i, 4x3. You just got to flip the switch to your PVM. Nice and simple. You see, custom routing. Now, we got that out of the way. Moving over, we have your HDMI console. So 360, PS3, PS4, Wii U, and Switch, as you can see here. Just simple. Into an HDMI switcher, into your HD TV's HDMI input. Simple. Now, this is where it gets a little, some of you may not know. Hopefully you know. If you're watching this, you might know. But the Dreamcast can do composite, S-video, but it can also do VGA, and it can do RGB. If you just want to do RGB, plug it into your PVM, no fuss, you're good. But it can do VGA, and with VGA, super clear at 480p. And a lot of the games that I would personally buy, the most critically acclaimed, they support 480p, so for the most part, you're good. Anyway, you have your Dreamcast outputting into a VGA box. You can get a first-party one. You can get one from Bayar Brothers. They're a third-party manufacturer of new custom VGA boxes with different cool features. Definitely check them out. So the VGA cable, the D-Sub15, goes into your Diamondtron. What a Diamondtron is just a high-end CRT, like a computer monitor, those old-school chunky monitors. But Diamondtrons were just known to have very good images. They kind of were in competition with Sony's Trinitron line. It's the Tube, I think, is what it is, if I'm not mistaken. Throughout all of this, by the way, if I make any mistakes, feel free to shit on me and correct me in the comments. All welcome. Anyway, so the Dreamcast straight up VGA box out into your Diamondtron monitor. HP, Dell, Mitsubishi, NEC, I think, all these companies have made Diamondtron displays. So Finding one's not that easy, but if you do, either of those will be fine. Anyway, so now we have all generations of consoles, starting with NES. Personally, that's as far back as I would go. So NES, SNES, 64, PS1, Genesis, Saturn. For those who don't know, NES, SNES, and 64 don't have native RGB support, so you'd need to mod it to do so. But if you're willing to go to this length, you probably know that and are willing to do so. Another thing you might have noticed, PVMs and Extron gear, they're video broadcasting professional equipment. So, having that complex matrix switching will not degrade your signal and will not introduce lag because they are made for professional use. My Life in Gaming did a video on switching recently, I believe, and they have one, and it worked just, obviously, they're using it, so it's great. Anyway, what I touched on so far was just video alone. That was just a video. So now let's move to audio. The best audio, so we have modern HD consoles. We have the 360, the PS3, and all the way up until now that support 5.1. So we're gonna go all the way. So 5.1 surround. What we're gonna need is the consoles that can do 5.1 to do 5.1, and everything else will just be 2.1. So you might have been looking ahead and thinking ahead, how would this work? So as far as just stereo consoles, old school stuff, we're going to have so the SCART switcher I have in mind specifically is the G-SCART switch, which is by a guy who makes it on his own. I don't know if it's at his house or if he has his own storefront for it, but really high quality switches. It's 8 inputs, 2 outputs. So we're going to be using specifically, theoretically, the VGA output to BNC, or not VGA, D-Sub-15 into BNC for the video. That's the video side. But for the audio, he includes a little 3.5 millimeter jack. Not bad. So we're going to take that output and we're going to put it into one of the AV receiver RCA inputs, just using a 3.5 to RCA cable. Not hard to find. Component switchers. So that one's just going to be going from the master red and white audio output into another input on the AV receiver. And the Dreamcast, the VGA boxes come with a audio output as well, commonplace, into another AV receiver input. Now, where it gets cool is when we go back a couple generations, the PS2 had surround support, but it's only 4 channels. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the center channel is just gone. It doesn't work. So it's not really worth it. You're just left with left and right and then front and back. Not bad, but you kind of see where I'm getting at here. So PS2, GameCube, and Wii would just be going into their component switch using the red and white cables that come with your red, blue, and green, component cables. But the Xbox has perfect 5.1 support. Play your Halo, surround. Psychonauts, I don't know, surround, whatever. Steel Battalion, surround, hello, hey. So that Xbox will be going directly into your AV receiver's one of the optical inputs, using the advanced AV pack, I believe it was called. Now, all of your HD consoles from today would be, and obviously if it's not, if you don't get it by now, you would, every time you want to play the Xbox, you would have to go component switch input 2, matrix output, so PVM, BVM for 480p, or if you want to play widescreen, a lot of titles had the support. You could just use your HD TV. That's perfectly fine. Then on your AV, for the audio, you'd have to select a channel that has your Xbox into it. Now, anyway, going forward, your 360, PS3, PS4, I believe had, well, regardless, all 5 consoles are going HDMI pure into your switcher and into your TV. But the consoles that can do surround, you would do so. The TV, preferably, should have an optical audio output. You would take that audio output, route it into another, as you can see on the chart here, into another input optical on the surround or the AV receiver. That way you would do, let's say I want to play, MGS5, PS4, you'd go HDMI input 3, TV, and your audio output, you select it on your AV receiver accordingly. And that's how you'd have the audio set up. So you'd have to have this switching on the AV receiver. Now, I know it sounds like you might have to get up switch a lot, but it's better than having to plug in and unplug stuff all the time, or having to compromise saying, well, I could play Steel Battalion on my Xbox in 5.1, but I don't have the proper, X or Y thing I need. So I have to compromise for 2.1. That's fine. But this is, remember, ultimate gaming setup. Like, we're talking no holds barred. Anyway, also, logistically speaking, I would say that you would need to have your PVM at a certain distance from you where it's, easy to see, and your Diamondtron right next to it. So that way you're not really far off looking left or right into each screen, depending. And then I would personally, visually speak, above them. So this is your PVM here, let's just say, and your Diamondtron right here. Whatever, I don't even know. You would have your HDTV kind of up here above them, and I guess to a wall behind them. If you're using a 4K TV, you can move it closer to you because it's just the way that you can read about that somewhere else. I can't really express it perfectly. But the higher, so if it's 4K, you could have it closer to you in reality. If it's 1080 max, you want it farther away. And that's how I'd set it. And then obviously have like your speaker, center, left, right, back, sub, obviously. But, without really touching on anything else, I'm making sure I didn't miss anything. That's about it. If you guys have any questions, again, let me know in the comments. If you guys think I'm wrong about something, go in the comments. If you guys can add anything to this, let me know in the comments. If you guys have anything to add in general, just let me know in the comments. Anyway, this has been Herman, Herman's Review Gaming. If you like this video, do that. If you hated this video, do that. Press that button. Subscribe. I have a monthly gaming collection update where I build a collection. I'm building a collection from scratch. I did month 1. If you're watching this video, check that video out. Let me actually switch back. Anyway, so yeah, check that video out if you haven't. I did a little shitty 3DS capture discussion video, lesson, informative thing. Check that out. Next week I have a video coming out, obviously, and then the week after that, I have my episode 2 of my collection update. So when that comes out, check that out. Subscribe to keep in, whatever. We out here. Herman's Review Gaming, out of this bitch.